Hello, I'm John Paul and I'm here at Rover Brothers today to fit some rear handbrake shoes on a Range Rover L322. First thing to do is take off the rear wheel. We're going to remove the rear brake caliper. So with a 16mm socket, the two bolts at the back of the caliper into the hub, undo them and remove the caliper and put it into a safe place. We're going to remove the little rubber grommet out of the disc. That reveals a hole where you can look through the hole and you will see the adjuster for the handbrake shoes. You need to put a screwdriver through, and there's a little knurled nut on the adjuster which we'll show you later once we've got the disc off. You need to put your screwdriver in, unadjust the brake shoes all the way so that the disc can come past the shoes. Well, now we're going to use a 6mm Allen key to undo the locating bolt for the disc. Once that's undone, you might just have to tap round the disc to pull it off. The disc does get very tight, so you will have to give it a good couple of real good hits with a hammer. You may well have to turn it and give it a couple of more hits to slacken the disc off on the spigot and then remove the disc, revealing the shoes. This is the adjuster we was talking about, and these are the knurls you need to get your screwdriver into, and anti-clockwise, when the disc was on, to click it against the disc to adjust the shoes. We need to remove the two little clips that hold the brake shoes to the back plate, and just use a 5mm Allen key, pop it in, push it against the spring pressure, turn it by 90 degrees and remove it. It's that spring pressure, and that's the clip that holds it to the back plate. We're now going to remove the brake's return spring. So if you get bare side cuts, grab hold of the spring, and this is a very tight spring, so what you might want to do is just use a screwdriver to lever against the hub onto your side cuts to give it some extra leverage so you can get the spring off. There's the spring. We're now ready to remove the shoes, so if you just pull them apart, pull it around the hub, and you can see there's the shoes, there's the adjuster we talked about earlier, and the spring, the lower spring, is still connected. So we'll now swap them over to the new shoes. We're just going to remove the handbrake actuator from the cable so that we can clean it up on the bench. So you need to just pull it forwards to release the cable behind and then take it out. This is the actuator that works. Now we'll clean this up on the bench and we'll show you how it works. This is the little handbrake shoe actuator. Now then, the cable sits in there in that little hook, which is tucked away like that. The two shoes fit in those two little grooves there. So as the cable's pulled, it spreads them apart, moving the handbrake shoes onto the hub. We've just oiled the little pivot point, so it's all nice and free. And then we're ready to refit back to the handbrake cable, and then we're going to refit the shoes. To refit the actuator, we need to put it into the cable, so the cable sits into the little hook, and then curl it back round, and we're ready to put the shoes back in. We're now going to swap the spring and the adjuster to the new set of shoes. So if you just pull the shoe to one side, release the spring, put the spring to one side. Here's the adjuster that we talked about. This is when you put your screwdriver in to unadjust, it brought the two lugs in together, and when you're going to readjust it later, what essentially happens is you elongate to adjust. We're now going to fit the spring and the adjuster back to the new set of shoes. So clip the spring on one shoe, onto the other shoe, just pull them apart, place the adjuster in there, and then just move the shoes apart, so then we're ready to put them back on the hub. This is one of the retaining clips that holds the shoe to the back plate. Now the spring should be loose on that pin, and this one's tight. So we really ought to take it to the bench, take the spring off the pin, clean everything up and put a bit of oil or copper grease around it, and then refit them. We're now going to refit the brake shoes, so pass them around the hub, fit them to the actuator, and then replace our retaining clips back to the back plate. Push it in 90 degrees, let it off. Do the other one, and then we're going to replace the spring. We're now going to replace the top return spring, pop it in the hole there, get your side cuts, replace it into that spring. You may well have to use a screwdriver again because this is a very tight spring. If you're not fitting new discs, you need to clean out the rust from where the handbrake shoes will be working. So just knock off any excess rust. Then I used a flappy paddle in a drill just to clean up the ring. We're just going to remove the rust from around the inner part of the disc here, because it does tend to catch on the back plate, so when you put it back together it just grinds away on the back plate. So it's always worth taking away that rust. The rust does get quite stubborn on the inside of this disc, so I just use a hammer and chisel and tap away. We're now going to replace the disc. Just make sure that the retaining bolt hole lines up with the bolt hole in the hub. So lift the disc up, line it up, and then replace the screw. With the disc now in place and the retaining bolt tightened up, we just need to rotate the disc until the hole lines up with the adjuster that we talked about earlier. Then we'll replace a screwdriver through the hole and adjust the shoes until it goes tight. Slacken it off a little bit, and then it's just worth using the handbrake a couple of times and then readjusting. So we're just going to replace the rubber grommet in the adjuster hole, get the caliper, pop it back on, bolt it up, and then we're ready to put the wheel back on. I'm now going to pop the wheel back on, put the nuts back on and tighten them down to 140 Newton meters.